begin?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask you to continue enjoying this wonderful, delicious lunch. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get started with our panel. And when we designed this panel, the expectation was that we were going to find an ability to be able to articulate the message about not only what needs to get done in order for us to potentially benefit from additional broadband dollars, but more importantly, what we can do together to resolve some of the challenges and also share a little bit about some of the work that's already getting done. So I'd like to take this opportunity to give each of these gentlemen that represent the wonderful entity that is VTX1 a chance to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about the work that they do for the company. Start.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Sebastian Ibaniski. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for VTX1. I've been with the company for about 20 years now. And usually I define my role as responsible for anything that has a blinking light.
My name is Patrick McDonald. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for VTX1. I've been in the Rio Grande Valley now for a little over 3 years, and when I first came to the Valley, some of the first people that I met, Dolly Villarreal and Dr. Garza, two of our board members, asked me to increase our presence here in Starr County, particularly Rio Grande City. We have a very strong presence just north of town in our rural area, but we felt like we could do more and get more involved here. So that's how I first met Rose, Nilda, Billy Canales, some of the people from the Starr County Industrial Foundation, received with welcome arms by the judge and the mayor. Appreciate their invitation to get more involved here. They've been very helpful with us. And our goal is really to become better citizens, better business partners over here, and while we expand our internet presence in the Valley.
Absolutely. I'm Orlando Quintanilla. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for VTX1. I've been working with VTX1 about 16 years now. So, started out with the company in lower tiered portion of the company, but ultimately just kind of worked my way up to the position I am now. But obviously, we're very proud of what we can accomplish and what we've done thus far throughout our communities, and we look to expand further into Starr County to assist with bridging the digital divide.
My name is Jeff Patterson. I'm the VP of Business Development. I've been with VTX1 close to 5 years now, and really my main role is establishing and creating relationships within the communities that we serve, trying to identify those opportunities that exist to be able to help, and especially over the last few years when COVID hit, is recognizing what could we do to help bridge the gap, right, for those that don't have, and provide some relief to them and get them access to the internet. And so a lot of my focus is bringing whatever plans we can come up with to fruition and getting community buy-in, because we don't want to go into anywhere and just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We want input from the communities that we serve and make sure that we're all on the same page and trying to solve the problem together.
Absolutely, gentlemen, and this is actually a great segue for the first question that we have this afternoon, and this is going to be for Pat. We talk a lot about this connectivity and how the expectation is that we make the world smaller and closer for us to reach out and touch in whatever way that broadband and those services do for us. But I think one of the things that we sometimes neglect to talk about is how the regional approach to the build-outs will allow Starr County to be better efficient potentially and have better coverage. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the single biggest things that we've pushed as part of our efforts is that the regional approach is really the right way to go with this. Any one city, if you have, I don't even know how many cities are in the state of Texas, but even the number of counties. So if everybody tries to do their own thing, you've got everybody competing against each other for the same bucket of money. So the smartest thing to do is for all of us to get together, come up with a regional approach, city and county as an example here in Starr County working together, getting some of the access to funds, working through our local politicians, our federal politicians, to make sure that we receive our fair share here in the Valley. If we do that, we'll be more successful than if we try to have everybody go it alone.
Absolutely, and in that respect, Orlando, if we were to talk about what other advantages we have to pooling these resources in order to achieve the scale of deployment in underserved areas, what would you think are areas where we can start planning for in that regard?
So I think the planning perspective, I think it kind of gears it toward to where the need is. We understand that there is areas of need. You have unserved locations. A lot of this stuff that we've seen, there's a lot of mapping that's out there currently that this FCC has put out. And there's a lot of challenges that go along with those maps because some of those maps are not actually identifying the real story, right? There's a lot of companies out there that may be overstating what they're doing, what they're trying to do in certain areas. And we want to make sure that we partner with folks to say, this map may not be correct. We think that we should focus our efforts here. Or we look at those areas that are, in need in terms of, you have a lot of population in the area and they're just not, the connectivity is not there, and we can get that information from the public entity, the city, the county, to tell us, hey, we know this area is in need and we can focus on that. But also is making sure that we're making sense of the build out, right? We wanna make sure that we build efficiently. And we look at the potential of going, what we're calling now is a hybrid approach. Hybrid approaches will allow us to be able to extend our footprint into areas for fractions of what fiber could do. But you'll be able to get fiber-like speeds utilizing what we're calling alternative technologies, or just completely being technology agnostic. So those are conversations that we'll have, and those are things that we want to discuss with everybody.
So, and as a follow-up, we talk a lot about the value of public-private partnerships.
Yes.
But I think specifically in this situation, what would you think would be the best way to leverage those relationships in order to bridge that digital divide?
So I think it's just more of just having those conversations, and obviously having these events is very important. But having a strategic discussion and having a focus group is very important. You could have different representatives from different parts of the county or the city. You have ISPs, internet service providers like us, that have been doing this for years, that could lend that support and say, this is the direction you need to go in. And by no means are we ever saying that VTX1 is a be-all to end-all that's gonna solve everybody's problems, but we can help get everybody in the right direction. We wanna make sure that we are doing our part in guiding and saying this is the right direction, and not spending vast amounts of money for small portions of your districts or your areas or your precincts. So, we just wanna make sure that the money's being spent appropriately.
Absolutely, and so Jeff, I think if you could just add a little, because one of the things that we also are very interested in when we're talking about the ability to have this connectivity is how it allows our communities to be innovative and competitive, right? When we're looking at other technology and what use that has for the future. So could you tell us a little bit maybe about what kind of benefit those kind of partnerships can have in that respect to communities and rural communities like Starr County?
Yeah, I think the Broadband Development Office, the BDO that was created, has given some guidance on some expectations. And one of that is they're not interested in seeing an internet service provider fill out an application, go after some money, and then go dictate what they want to see happen in a particular area. What they're looking for is partnerships. This is what we're talking about today, right? The public-private partnership. They want to understand that the internet service provider has gotten with the key stakeholders within the community, right? So is the county judge on board? Are the commissioners on board? Are the higher education institutions supporting this plan? So if we all come together with a plan that we can all support, the likelihood of winning a grant to fund what we want to accomplish for everybody increases significantly. And more importantly is, as smart as we think we are as an internet company, we don't know nearly as much about any community we serve than the people that actually live there, right? No one can tell you where they're suffering in an area better than the people that are from there. And so listening to that knowledge and then putting that into the plan will create more success for everyone.
And we absolutely agree, and I think one of the things that we have learned over the last few years of beginning those dialogues and starting those conversations, even prior to potentially some of these dollars being available, we knew that there was going to be not only an expectation, but a definite need to have a partner, and we've been fortunate to find that in VTX in the last few years with the amount of investment that you've made already here. But one of the things that I think is important for people to know is that there is a philosophy internally that you all use as a guiding force of, in some of this decision making. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think COVID really opened our eyes to the need that really existed. I've been in this industry for over 2 decades, and I was still very surprised at the amount of people that didn't have access. And so we started thinking about what is access, and simply you can say, we got a bunch of money and we put a cable to every single person's house, they all have access. But if the people that live in that house can't afford it, do they have access? And my answer would be, no, they don't, right? So therein lies one of the problems that we've seen that was created is, there may be a cable going into a house, but if they can't afford it, they still don't have access. And then you can take that one step further and say, okay, we've gotten into the house, we've made it affordable, we're utilizing programs like the Affordable Connectivity Program from the federal government to reduce that cost. But there's still a lot of people that don't understand how to truly utilize the technology available to them. So making sure that we're educating the public, right? Digital literacy is important, so that way we can provide some help. How do you create an email? How do you do your banking online? These are all classes and stuff that we can do, because if you get it to the house, you make it affordable, and then you teach the people how best to use it, now we're setting up people to have better access to healthcare. People are getting preventative care. You have people getting more education. And all this stuff starts to feed into the economic development in any community.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we have, is prevalent and we've seen, is just the difference in the ability to connect, but know what to do with that connection has made, in situations like pandemics, in situations where there is a desire to market your business, to do all sorts of things that typically, years ago would be something that would not only be exuberant in price, but would be out of the reach of small business because of the amount of technology that it took and devices at that point, when now, we pick up one of these and we're connected to the world and we can sell our products and we can do anything, right? So it's exciting for us to know that you want to hear from our communities and you want to learn a little bit, but if you could tell us a little bit more about how rural communities and potentially the challenge that they face when it comes to the absence of broadband. I think, Orlando, and this question will be for you, is that as we're doing these initiatives like financial and digital literacy, how do we make those changes in our communities, and what can we be doing to improve that?
Absolutely. So I think the root of the issue, I think, with rural, I think broadband is the cost to build in these areas. And traditionally, you've had larger providers, I won't name any names, but those providers that kind of stick to urban areas really don't generally kind of venture into the rural territory because of the cost, right? The cost per location or cost per structure passed is quite a bit, right? And us, that's where we started. When we started in rural community, we started out as Valley Telephone Cooperative. A lot of people know us as that in the rural communities, and we've provided services in these areas since 1952. Obviously, broadband wasn't around in 1952, but we provided telephone service, right? So it was a form of communication, of being able for people to communicate with each other. But the biggest challenge, like I said, is cost, but trying to be able to get that funding, right, to be able to build to these territories is important. We participate in a few things, and we actually get some government funding to be able to expand in territories for capital expenses and things like that. But recently we actually elected to go what we're calling enhanced ACAM. So this ACAM is actually a program that allows us to be able to fund a CapEx and build out into rural communities for the next, I believe it was 15 years. And we have to be able to build this out within 4. Now, that is specific territory, but that allows us to expand more into these areas, provide that connectivity to those that need it, those that have been left out because of the cost that people felt like it wasn't, wouldn't benefit the company overall.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that everyone in this room would agree is that our sole purpose in being public servants and being leaders in business and in the public and private sector is finding ways to be able to do these scales of economy that will allow access to not just be about the ability to tap in, but to be able to pay that bill monthly, which, you know, it sometimes can be a little pricey.
It can be, yeah, and I think in rural areas, you know, Jeff alluded to the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Plan. There is 2 levels of connectivity or funding, right? You have a $30 credit that people may qualify for, but there is also, depending on where you are and the rurality of these locations, they can qualify for $75, right? So that's pretty substantial when you're thinking about the connectivity, and that allows for expanded development, expanded construction areas, because that those funds are coming in, that's being paid.
No, absolutely, and we do want to thank you again for everything that you do on the corporate level to be able to offset some of that.
Sure.
And I know we've seen it personally with some of the projects that you've undertaken. And one of the things that is probably critical for communities like ours that are rural but that are thriving with growth is the ability to see this broadband connection and the availability as a catalyst, right, for economic development. And what we can do with these public-private partnerships, with these regional approaches, and either improve our opportunities or open them where they are not in terms of recruitment and expansion of our local development efforts. So can you speak, and this could be for you, Jeff, or it could be for Rolando or Pat.
Yeah, I think when you start talking about economic development, and that means the attraction of more business to the area. And we know that people start looking at how many rooftops are there. They start looking at what type of skilled workforce is available to me. And so in order to have those types of things, you need infrastructure. You need water, you need power, and you also need internet. So as you get more people connected, you have more access to the programs that STC can provide you, more educational opportunities. And so as these businesses are looking to expand that are already here, businesses that are looking to move to the area, when they're doing their research and they recognize that this is a connected community, they're providing a skilled workforce, because when you start to do those things, more people have money. When more people have money, more houses are built. You start attracting people to the area because there's good jobs here now. So you have the tax base that goes up. You need businesses to support that. So is it more grocery stores? Is it more restaurants? So all these things become very cyclical, and one continuously feeding the other. And it starts with the quality of the infrastructure that's there and making that access available to everyone, so everyone has the ability to go out and earn a living, to get an education, and then do more for their community, because that will feed the growth that this area is looking for.
You know, and I'd like to ask, because as an entity that does this kind of work daily, right, and being able to recruit or help with the expansion of a business, there's invariably questions about our capacity at every level of infrastructure. And so one of the things that is often asked is, where are the water lines, you know, where are the electrical lines, what is our cost gonna be to hook up to these? But here recently, one of the other questions that wasn't there in the past is, where's fiber? You know, is it near the area that you're looking to develop? How long or how much is it gonna cost to be able to do that? So I wonder if anyone can share with us, you know, what you've been doing in Starr County at this point, and maybe that will help us identify some of the areas not only of need, but areas that are already benefiting from it.
Let me answer one thing first. So one of the things that when we work with local government, state governments, you know, I had this discussion with Ryan a week or two ago, is that we can all work together and actually drive down some of the cost to serve some of these areas. As an example, you mentioned water lines, putting in new water lines if every time water lines, like the state of Georgia, when they run new power lines to a community, they also require empty ductwork to be put in there so that if an internet provider comes along, that duct is already in there, so it makes the cost to take that community live a lot less expensive. It can cut as much as 30% of the cost off. So if we work together and we say that as we put in power, as we put in water, as we put in gas lines, if we can then put in the capacity to put in the ductwork for fiber down the road, again, dropping that price by 30%, it makes it that much easier to enable those areas. You know, Orlando mentioned cost. We spend about $30 million a year in capital expenditures in our footprint, $30 million a year building new network capacity. Not all of that is with fiber, some of that is over one of the newer technologies that's out now that didn't even exist 2 years ago, that we're able to give gig-like speeds or fiber-like speeds over an alternative technology. The state of Texas has embraced that. But when you mention cost, the other thing is, you know, we've been mostly a rural provider up till now, and we've started to expand into the cities where there's need and nobody else seems to be stepping up. So we've said that's really our role, we should step up. But it's interesting, so if Sebastian has our internet, and he says, I call in and I say, well, Sebastian has our internet, I'm his next door neighbor, would you provide service to me? I may live 3 miles away from him, and it's $70,000 to $80,000 a mile to build there. Fiber's not always the right answer for that. So that's where, as Orlando mentioned, the hybrid approach, because, you know, when we look at, it's great to run down Highway 83 here in town, but the real need sometimes is a mile or two off that main highway into the colonias and some of the more lower income areas where, again, Jeff mentioned the cost to serve. It's one thing to build the capacity, it's another to make it affordable. And working together, if we can do things like cutting some of the cost of infrastructure 30%, it makes it a lot easier for us to charge a lower price to give that service, to make it worthwhile. Or maybe it's colonias where we work with other groups and come up with some sponsorship so that if the local citizens can't pay for it, we've got other philanthropic groups that are willing to step up and do that. The city of Chattanooga is always the poster child of the right thing to do with the internet. You know, they were the first 1 gig city, now they're the first 10 gig city. But the other thing they realized is that they built this huge network, but they had a lower take rate than what they expected. And what they found out was that the people that most needed the services couldn't afford it. So they got all the local business leaders together and said, we need to raise some money that will hold us for 10 years so that the lowest income people that can't pay for this, they don't have to worry about that. We take that off the plate. So there's different things that we can do to help come up with some of this money. There's groups like Connect Humanity and groups like that that are willing to put up some funding to help us in some of those areas. But we have to be the conduit to say we're willing to build the infrastructure in a house. Can we get some of this other financial help to make it worthwhile and make it so that it's not a burden on the local citizens?
Yeah, pun intended, right? Conduit. But yeah, ultimately, I think to address the question about what we've done thus far in the county, you know, we currently have close to 600 miles of fiber in Starr County right now. So if you really think about that, that's a lot of fiber, right? That fiber is predominantly kind of in our footprint north of this area. Now, we did recently build into Rio Grande City along the 75 extension recently, and we actually built into the St. Ives development. Now, that was our ability to be able to penetrate the area and identify that we're here and we can help. Now, we've spent, I believe this year, 2023 year to date, close to $2 million in infrastructure improvement and CapEx, right? So we've done that in Starr County, and we did that kind of in the northern territories, like I mentioned, the county areas, and some stuff into the city. So we're continuing to expand, we're continuing to do that, and we do that based on the needs of the area. So we'll continue to do that going forward.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing is, you know, just because there is $3.3 billion and $1.5 billion, there's never a guarantee in a competitive process that you're going to get that. And if we were to win, you're still looking at people getting access 2, 3, 4 years from now. And so one thing I've been very proud of is the decision for us to move ahead and start trying to solve problems today, rather than waiting on someone else to completely fund everything. If we can help the rural communities, if we can help Rio Grande City, If we can help Starr County today, and we have the ability to do so, then we're doing it, rather than just waiting and say, well, if someone gives me money, I'll go help. That's not the approach we've taken.
So I'm hearing, a vital underlying theme here about collaboration, obviously, about leveraging, the resources, but more importantly, about planning.
Yes.
And what that does for, not only the, opportunity to be more competitive, but also to be able, to identify the areas and what the needs are. And I think, some of that has already started. We're doing a little bit of that. Does anyone want to share a little bit about, where we are with some of that mapping?
Yeah, I think with the mapping, there was a recent map that came out, and it's actually a better map than what we had seen in the past. We did see some new underserved locations pop up on the map, which is good, because we know that they were there to begin with. We just need to throw challenges out there to say that we know that these areas need attention. So we'll continue to look at those maps, we'll continue to work through that. We have a lot of resources, and we also worked with some stakeholders and some consultants, some contractors that were continuing to monitor these maps and provide information to us. So that is something that we provide, and that's at no cost to anybody. We just want to be able to provide the information to everyone and have that clarity for everyone going forward.
Yeah, and I want to add with those maps is one of the most frustrating pieces for us when we see them is we know that not everyone in Starr County is connected, but when you look at a map, it goes, like 95% is, and you're like, that's not accurate, that's not true.
Yeah.
And that really makes you ineligible to really go after any funding that will do any good. It's always a huge issue when the valley as a whole is listed on least connected places in America. And then a map comes out and says, no, they're all connected.
Right.
And so there's a big frustration because two completely different things. And if they want to help, the maps have to be corrected. And so we're very dedicated to ensuring that the maps are going to be corrected. And the only way we can do that is by collaborating with the local people and understanding where those areas of need.
Absolutely.
So I think it's clear, from these conversations that we have work to do, right? And that, having these dialogues is just the beginning. And so, what would be the most appropriate next steps if we were to take this from beyond dialogue and start putting this into some kind of action plan?
Absolutely. So I think we've kind of done some legwork to determine what it's going to take to be able to build broadband, but we're looking at a hybrid solution. So a hybrid solution is leveraging fixed wireless and also utilizing fiber middle mile. So middle mile basically identifies fiber that connects tower locations. At the same time, along these fiber routes, we can hand off fiber to homes and residents and commercial business along these paths. We looked at a potential of expanding about 504 square miles of coverage through fixed wireless. Now, the speeds that we're able to attain with this technology is something we hadn't seen before. As Pat alluded to earlier, we're looking at the possibility of providing gig-like speeds using a point-to-point wireless connection, right? Which was unheard of 2 years ago. Right now, we have deployed technology that's capable of going up to 400 megabits per second from a tower location to a home. And that's something that we looked at. We looked at that cost, and I think for the middle mile itself, we're looking at potentially a $5.7 to $6 million investment to be able to expand fiber on in the southern part of the county, and then to be able to deploy fixed wireless towers. And that itself will be able to cover the majority of the county, maybe, we're saying maybe about 95 to 96% of the county. Now that other 4%, that's something that's more of a custom design, that's something we can work through and help out with. So we've done some of that legwork already, and we continue to share that information and see what we do to try to plan on that going forward.
Yeah, and